Hello and thanks for joining us for another edition of Northwest Newsweek. I'm Mitchell Ringos. Well, there's a new police chief in Thunder Bay. Longtime RCMP officer Darcy Fleury, a member of the Manitoba Métis, has been selected for the position. The police force has dealt with many controversies in recent years, and the Anishinaabe-Aski Nation had called for it to be disbanded due to systematic racism. But NAN's Deputy Grand Chief says she's willing to give Fleury a chance to bring about change. The police board established a governance committee in August of 2022 with board and community members to create a selection committee for a new chief. Police board administrator Malcolm Mercer says that committee brought a variety of comparable candidates to the table, but overall, Darcy Fleury was the right fit for this position. Mercer says his perspective on the communities and challenges that face Thunder Bay is a real advantage.
What I will say about Darcy Fleury that for me is the most significant is I think he is a fundamentally decent man who is thoughtful, kind, and capable of clear thinking and hard choices. And that combination is not common.
Fleury says he doesn't have much experience in Thunder Bay, but he has been keeping a close eye on the news surrounding the police force for quite some time. He believes having open communication within the community is key, as he will be focusing on establishing a strong relationship with all organizations and governments when he arrives.
I enjoy talking to people and getting out there and seeing exactly how we're providing service, if it's appropriate. I always tell the people that I'm talking with, the community governments, tell us the good, the bad, and the ugly. If our office isn't managing what you're asking us to do, then we need to know so we can take appropriate steps to change that and make it better, make the partnerships more efficient and effective. And that's what I think I'm going to bring there.
We certainly applaud and appreciate all the individuals who did apply for the chief of police, knowing that it was going to be coming with an abundance of challenges. And so we look forward to meeting with the chief of police and continuing the relationship.
Fleury will arrive in mid-April to begin a one-month transition period with Acting Chief Dan Taddeo, followed by a formal change of command on May 15th. A spring snowstorm created some treacherous driving conditions this week on the Trans-Canada Highway along the North Shore. Several transport trucks went off the road or got stuck on hills, but fortunately, there weren't any serious injuries or major highway closures. This transport jackknifed and went into the ditch near Herkett sometime around noon on Wednesday. The eastbound lane of Highway 1117 was partially blocked and traffic control was put in place. Meanwhile, another transport went off the snow-covered highway about 15 kilometers east of Nipigon near Kama Point Road. That mishap occurred at around 9 a.m. and blocked traffic in the eastbound lane. And there were several transports stuck on the big hill along Highway 17 near Rossport. Scriber OPP were called to the area just before noon to help deal with the situation. A police spokesperson says the transports were removed by 1 p.m. and snowplows were then brought in to get the highway fully reopened. While this latest snowstorm didn't lead to any fatalities, the same can't be said for other storms this winter. The past few months have seen many crashes end with tragedy along highways in the north, especially involving transports. It led to MPP Lise Vaugeois organizing a news conference at Queen's Park, where she renewed her call for better training for highway truckers. Celios Bellos reports.
It's yet another call on the Ford government to improve trucker training and regulations across Ontario.
Creating pressure and danger, obviously they're driving when they shouldn't be.
Thunder Bay Superior North MPP Lise Vaugeois held a news conference in Toronto, which came after multiple fatalities on northern highways this weekend. One incident saw a transport driver near Marathon lose their life, and another collision result in the death of a snowplow operator. According to Vaugeois, many of these tragedies are a result of a lack of training and regulations imposed on drivers, something she is pushing the PCs to improve. Vaugeois also raised red flags over the ability trucking companies have to operate their own driver training schools.
There's a conflict of interest there, I think, from the get-go, and the government needs to be either really monitoring what is going on or perhaps requiring that those functions be separated.
Joining Vaugeois' efforts was John Van Thoff, MPP for Timiskaming Cochrane. Van Thov explains the importance of monitoring trucker training, considering the purpose these highways serve northern communities.
In Timiskaming Cochrane and Thunder Bay, Highway 11 and Highway 17, they're not just the Trans-Canada Highway, they're our main street. If my wife wants to go for groceries, she's on Highway 11 with those trucks.
During the press conference, co-founder of Truckers for Safer Highways, Travis McDougall, also spoke. The group has been advocating for stronger regulations for transport drivers, with McDougall pointing out that he had to stop for just one weigh station in a recent trip from Barrie to the West Coast. While McDougall stresses more can be done, he believes the new weigh station being constructed just east of Thunder Bay is a good start.
We as Truckers for Safer Highways think this is a good scale that they're building, a great location, because it's going to be in a spot, it's between Thunder Bay and Nipigon. So both 11 and 17 run on this stretch and trucks can't go around it. There's no way to avoid it.
Vaugeois stressed that she'll continue pushing the Ford government to impose new training and regulation standards for truckers across the province.
The Ford government is providing around $6 million in provincial disaster recovery funding to several towns and cities in the Northwest due to major flood damage last spring. A number of communities dealt with roads and highways being washed out, along with culvert failures and other road damage. The record flood levels were due to heavy precipitation combined with increased snowmelt. The Municipal Disaster Recovery Assistance Program helps cover the cost of the emergency response, debris cleanup, and repairs to municipal infrastructure. Ignace tops the list, receiving more than $1.7 million. Fort Frances is getting close to $1.5 million, while Kenora gets $1.3 million. Red Lake will receive over $700,000, while Sioux Lookout gets over $450,000, and Conmee Township receives $146,000. Municipalities can be eligible for funding if their disaster-related costs are over 3% of their taxation levy. At the recent TBDML conference, Thunder Bay Atikokan MPP Kevin Holland discussed his government's provincial budget that was released Thursday. Holland spoke highly of some of the investments he believes will directly benefit the Northwest.
We're making the investments into mental health and addictions. We're making the investments into infrastructure. We're making the investments into the mining sector. We're making the investments into skilled trade shortages that we're facing. And it's not just skilled trades, it's the shortage of workers across all sectors and industries. These are all things that are contained in the budget, and as I said, we've made historical investments to address those issues.
Thunder Bay Superior MPP Lise Vaugeois was also on hand during the two-day conference. She says it's still unclear exactly where much of the provincial dollars are going, but Vaugeois says affordable housing is an area that needs to be addressed.
The overall budget for housing and municipal affairs has been cut by $124 million. I have been trying to find funding for 2 housing projects in Thunder Bay. They're both shovel-ready. There's nothing available that they can apply for to get those things going. So that's a very big concern. I don't see anything in the budget that's going to alleviate that pressure.
Representatives from 17 municipalities in the Thunder Bay District are gathered Thursday and Friday at the Prince Arthur Hotel. The annual meeting of the Thunder Bay District Municipal League has area leaders working together to lobby the province and bring about important change for the region. Vasilios Bellos reports.
For the first time since the beginning of the pandemic, the Thunder Bay District Municipal League was able to meet in person once again.
If you're still excited about it, you see that not only with your passion about serving your community, but with your other members and the passions about whatever issue they're bringing forward.
83 participants from 17 municipalities around the district have come to the Prince Arthur Hotel for the two-day event to discuss some of the issues having a significant impact on the region. Marathon Mayor and longtime TBDML President Rick Dumas speaks to the importance of these discussions, which recognize both the positives and negatives affecting the district.
We're all going to see some real struggles over the next couple of years, but we're also going to see some huge benefits in the mining sector growth, the economic growth, the opportunities. So there's opportunities, there's going to be some struggles, and by coming together with this type of event, we can all work together and see what those important issues are to bring to the Government of Ontario for resolution.
The presentation that highlighted day one was given by Cynthia Olson, Thunder Bay's drug strategy lead. Olson says being able to have such a range of leaders discuss the worsening drug crisis is crucial, especially considering the concerns are being felt across the district.
There's a lot of issues that are certainly impacting our local community in the city of Thunder Bay, as well as the outlying areas and the district. We're seeing it across Ontario and across Canada. So the more that we have individuals that are aware and able to maybe advance some of these at other areas, that's a benefit to the province.
The second and final day of the conference kicks off Friday morning at 9. On the agenda is a presentation from Superior North EMS Chief Shane Muir, providing an update on their services after a plan was approved to consolidate bases in the district. Along with this, the two local MPPs, New Democrat Lise Vaugeois and PC member Kevin Holland, will be speaking in the early afternoon. Vasilios Bellos, TBT News.
And we'll be back with day 2 of the Thunder Bay District Municipal League after this short break. Welcome back. It was the final day of gathering of the Thunder Bay District Municipal League on Friday. One of the key topics on the agenda was the status of Superior North EMS and the latest increase in its calls for service. This comes after the recent approval of the EMS master plan, which includes the controversial merger of some ambulance bases in the district. Vasilios Bellos reports.
The first in-person meeting since the beginning of the pandemic for the Thunder Bay District Municipal League concluded on Friday, which included a presentation by the new chief of Superior North EMS.
Stations they're working out of right now are not adequate for modern paramedic service.
Shane Muir recently took over the role, not long after Thunder Bay City Council approved a 10-year EMS master plan. It includes the consolidation of the stations in Schreiber and Terrace Bay, as well as in Nipigon and Red Rock. During his presentation, Muir stressed these moves would benefit the services provided as a whole, especially considering these stations involved are outdated.
We need to increase their shoot times by providing them with modern facilities, areas where the actual ambulance is located in the same building as where they're being housed and working, so they can have a rapid response to that ambulance. We're going to have quick acting garage doors to go up and down and get those paramedics onto the road into those emergency situations as fast as possible.
But for some leaders from the affected communities, including Terrace Bay Mayor Paul Malashewski, there are still concerns how these changes could affect their local EMS service.
Mr. Gates said response times wouldn't change. We don't understand how response times wouldn't change if an ambulance is 10 minutes away. So we don't get that part.
The approved EMS master plan also includes shutting down the station in Beardmore, which falls in the municipality of Greenstone. Councillor Eric Peach fears not only how this would affect his community, but those nearby.
You're now pulling ambulances and resources from either Geraldton or Nipigon, and once you do that, you start staging ambulances in between our wards in our community, which greatly increases the response time for anything else.
For others, there was the concern of whether their community's voice was being heard.
Haven't really been consulted a lot throughout the process.
Red Rock clerk Mike Figliomeni was hoping for more of these opportunities, explaining his mindset moving forward.
Make it a service that will serve both communities and the entire district equally, fairly, and again to the best level of service that can happen through this consolidation process.
Moving forward, Chief Shane Mears says consultation with affected communities will impact decision making. That will include a meeting on April 4th in Terrace Bay, which will include members from that community and Schreiber. Vasilios Bellows, TVT News.
The Transportation Safety Board is blaming unstable ground beneath the train tracks for a major derailment in this region 3 years ago. The incident happened on the CP rail track just west of Ignace in May of 2020. 53 hopper cars filled with grain derailed. Some of the grain was spilled, but there were no dangerous goods involved and no one was injured. The train was headed from Winnipeg to Thunder Bay with 222 cars and 3 locomotives traveling at 74 kilometers per hour. TSB investigators found that the surface beneath the track at the accident site consisted of soft, saturated peat in an area with poor drainage, which made the tracks unstable. The TSB says following the accident, CP Rail improved the track infrastructure in the derailment area to reduce the risk of a similar incident happening again. Mattawa community members who are entitled to compensation under the $8 billion federal drinking water settlement got some help with their applications this week. The Mattawa office in Thunder Bay held a walk-in clinic on Thursday. To be eligible for compensation, First Nations members must have lived for at least a year between 1995 and 2021 in a First Nation under a drinking water advisory. That includes most of the 9 Mattawa communities. Staff at the walk-in clinic can assist any Mattawa member in applying for themselves or their dependents in English or Anishinaabe-Moan.
It's actually not that complicated. All people do is they come in, it's just the basic information, which First Nation they were on and when, the dates, and then it's just we need your government ID, your direct deposit, and then we send it off.
The deadline to apply was recently extended to March 7th of next year, and Jourdain is confident they'll have lots of time to get applications in for everyone who wants to join the settlement. She encourages Mattawa members to reach out to the organization for support with their applications. The executive director of the Ontario Native Women's Association was back at the United Nations, this time attending the 2023 Water Conference. Cora McGuire-Surrett traveled from Thunder Bay to the UN headquarters in New York City to take part in discussions on how private and governmental organizations can improve their handling of water as a resource.
I think during the pandemic, it really became very apparent. It was in your face that not everybody had access to clean drinking water, and not everybody had access to what they call wash services, right? To be able to have healthy sanitization, because that's a big part of the pandemic that we had just all faced.
McGuire-Surrett says 28 Indigenous communities across Canada are currently impacted by limited access to clean drinking water and proper sanitation, and that's one of the main factors leading to Indigenous people living 10 years less than the average Canadian. Because of that, she believes investing in water is an investment for a more sustainable future.
We really need to make sure that there's a world worth living in the future. And the call to action is now, because the research and evidence is showing that we need to put forward 4 times our effort that we're currently doing now in order to meet the 2030 goal. And if we don't meet that goal, we don't know what type of future we're leaving for our grandchildren's grandchildren.
The UN wants to ensure universal access to drinking water, sanitation, and hygiene by the year 2030. When we return, we'll have a story about the $1 million recreational upgrades coming to Red Rock. Welcome back. The indoor ice rink in Red Rock has been closed all season due to an ammonia leak, but rather than invest around $100,000 to repair just the ice plant, the township decided to instead wait and complete major upgrades at the entire recreational center after receiving $1.3 million from two separate provincial and federal programs. Darquise Robinson has been bowling at the facility long before she was mayor of the township. Now that funding has arrived, she's excited about the long overdue upgrades, which include a new bowling alley, a new Zamboni, and the needed repairs to the ice rink. Thanks to the grant, new features are being added to the building which aim to improve accessibility. Exterior maintenance is being performed on the building, and work on the ice rink will begin this summer.
We received $1.3 million from ICIP funding and the CCR. This is going to be a big overhaul. So what we're going to see is a basically brand new bowling alley, plus other things. But the bowling alley is really what we're excited for. New gutters, new lanes, approaches, and automatic scoring.
If all goes according to plan, the township hopes to see the ice rink reopened and being groomed by the new Zamboni by this fall. In Kenora, a divided city council has voted to approve the 2023 operating budget. Tuesday's vote passed by only a narrow margin, with Mayor Andrew Poirier speaking out against a municipal tax levy of more than 5%. Council voted a close 4-3 to approve the 2023 operating budget and utility budgets. The capital budget had already been approved in February. Mayor Poirier was one of the dissenting votes, while Councillor Kelsey Van Bellingham supported the budget. But both agreed that city staff were to be commended for their diligence in preparing the budget.
This will be my 13th budget. It's the first time I'm going to vote against any portion of the budget, and I always felt that it was aligned with what I thought. But I cannot, in good conscience, approve a budget that's 5.32%, or I believe that's what the rate will end up being.
We have to pay our utility bills. We have to pay for the gas that's going into the vehicles that are doing the work that we've asked the city to do. And we have also implemented with this council a community and safety wellbeing coordinator and allotted money towards a committee to do the work that this city has asked us to do.
The vote completes the 2023 budget process. The total budget comes to $60 million, representing a 5.36 tax levy increase over last year. Actual tax rates are yet to be calculated. The bulk of that, roughly $42 million, will go to operating expenses, with $16.6 million going into capital expenses. Council also voted 4-3 in favor of a new non-union salary grid retroactive to January 1st. Highway 602, located just west of Fort Frances, will remain closed for the foreseeable future due to a bridge that's been deemed unsafe. An assistant emergency management coordinator in that area, Blair Lowy, is also the owner of a produce greenhouse along Highway 602. He says the bridge was closed to all traffic in September.
It was mainly once the school buses started driving over it, they questioned whether or not it was safe or not. But there was lots of really bumps and everybody was bottoming out on the bridge for a while.
Lowy says the detour has caused some confusion for customers trying to find his business and possibly other businesses down the road. But he says the residents of 602, also called Sunset Drive, have gotten used to it or found shortcuts to avoid the 25-minute detour. In fact, some have even started to allow their children to play outside without the worries of cars or oncoming traffic. But Lowy says residents have been worried about how emergency services would get to them.
I had a person that was concerned on the weekend about getting an ambulance when we had the snowstorm here to their house, but I guaranteed them that we would get a fire truck to them or a snowplow to them and get the ambulance through if they needed it.
Construction teams have already started work on the bridge, and Lowy expects the highway to reopen in October. And that's all the time we have for this edition of Northwest Newsweek. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.